Hey folks, Dr. Mike Israel here for Renaissance Periodization. Today's topic is asking a question. Is TRT right for you? Times like this, I wish I was a TRT clinic salesman, but I am not. This is a big important choice, so let's give it some due diligence. In this talk today, we will talk about a few things. First, we're going to talk about what TRT is, what TRT seeks to accomplish as a medical therapy, what happens when hypogonadal, individuals who do not produce enough testosterone by themselves, what happens when hypogonadal folks are administered TRT, typically what the results are, what happens when eugonadal, folks that have a normal amount of natural testosterone production, what happens when they get TRT, what the downsides are of TRT, and how to make your choice based on your situation, and all of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. So here we go. TRT is testosterone replacement therapy, and it is the introduction of usually injectable testosterone in order to account for a suboptimal production of endogenous testosterone that you make yourself. Basically, your nuts don't make enough test, so we need to shoot more into you so that the total amount gets to be nice and high. High enough to make it normal so that you get a normal human exposure to testosterone, which you're currently not getting. That's all TRT seeks to accomplish, is to get you back up to normal levels such that you are functioning optimally from a perspective of health, physically, psychologically, sexually, etc. It is not designed to get you ripped and jacked out of your mind, and in most cases, it simply won't do that because it is replacement therapy, not enhancement therapy. Very important point that I will no doubt come back to at least one more time. Here's the thing. If you are hypogonadal and you receive testosterone replacement therapy, you can expect on average some results to occur. Hypogonadal are folks that underproduce testosterone for a variety of reasons. It could just be genetic, usually by a large margin. In the United States, at least, we use the reference range of 300 to 1,000 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone in the blood. And you're considered hypogonadal if you are below 300 nanograms per deciliter. When hypogonadal males receive supplementary testosterone in the form of replacement therapy, they're almost always brought into that 300 to 1,000 range, somewhere in there. When that happens, and originally they were below 300, a lot of times people get improved sexual function, often by a long shot. You get boners again, you want to do things with them, that whole situation. Your mood and sleep and sense of well-being tend to become elevated, maybe like you remember them in high school or something if the hypogonadal condition occurred to you later in life. Your energy and cognitive performance improves substantially. Your blood work improves from a health perspective, and so do other health markers. And yes, you are able to accrete and hold a meaningfully larger amount of muscle and less body fat. Yes, it will give you results if you are hypogonadal to begin with. Now, what happens when eugonadal people, eugonadal means true gonadal, real nuts, that's really what it means, when you produce a normal amount of testosterone, somewhere in that 300 to 1,000 range, and you start taking TRT instead. Predictably, nothing noteworthy happens because you didn't change your testosterone exposure much or hardly at all. And that's kind of fucking obvious because you're trying to replace something that was there anyway. You're producing normal range naturally, and then you took an injection that suppressed that normal production to zero, and now you're at the same amount except through injection. Natural or injection, same testosterone levels and same results, roughly speaking. Now, there's a nuance to that. If you're at 350 nanograms per deciliter, just above the cutoff, and your doctor prescribes you an amount that's like north of 700, then you will feel potentially some of those positives, but also some negatives. To that end, some doctors, those unscrupulous types, will prescribe you very top end to just above top end TRT. So instead of taking you from 150 nanograms as hypogonadal or from 400 nanograms as a eugonadal male, to something like 500 or 600, they will take you to 800 to 1200, possibly even, 1100 or something, over 1000 or close to it. In that case, if you were below that range to begin with, which you probably were, you will very likely see increases in sexual function and desire, some of which you could consider inconvenient. You will probably have a higher degree of alertness as well as athletic performance and much notably better body composition. You will be able to put on more muscle faster, lose fat faster and more completely, stay leaner, all that good stuff. However, your health markers are likely to decline marginally because you are now taking in lots and lots of testosterone, and your tendency towards frustration, aggression, and anxiety can, by a small or even not small, notable margin, go up. Bad side effects, right? Because, drumroll, you are in a super physiological state. Absolutely super physiological if we talk about the reference range of above 1000, and relatively super physiological, which is the only one that counts, if your body was humming along just fine, producing 400, and now you're at 1200. You just multiplied your test exposure by 3. Some of those effects are going to be positive. Some are almost certainly going to be negative. That is not replacement. That is enhancement. Nominally, you say you're on TRT, but really, you are on that good shit, that gear. That's not TRT anymore because you're not replacing 1200. You're replacing 400 with 1200, not TRT. By name, yes. By effect, absolutely not. All right. But okay, that sounds pretty sweet, kind of. If I get TRT, it could, when I have a good doctor I'm sort of buddy with, I could get to the top end of the range, let's say 900 or something, nanograms deciliter, and I'll have all good things, yes? So everyone should be on TRT, yes? Now hold on a second. There are some downsides. First, you have to shoot yourself either daily or weekly or biweekly with various size needles, some of which are quite large, and that's not fun. In addition to that, you have to travel with your gear because if you go on a holiday in 2 weeks in Mallorca, Spain, see, is that Spain? I hope. Rich people holidays, 2 weeks at a time. You got to bring your shit with you because if you don't, you're hypogonadal by the end of that 2 weeks and you feel like total shit even though you're in fucking lush wilderness or wherever the fuck you go to vacation. Traveling with gear blows, especially internationally, because they're like, what the fuck is that? And you're like, here's scripts, and they stand around for 5 minutes and they get the fuck out of here. Or longer than 5 minutes and then you get the whole probe. That's fun, but not for everyone. Another thing is shooting exogenous substances into your body is interesting in theory, but in practice, a lot of times your immune system will be like, what the fuck is that? And it'll give you big, red welts and you'll get a fever and all this other shit. They'll swell up on you. It's terrible. In real life, shooting is a gigantic pain in the ass. The only people that are excited about shooting drugs are TikTok teenagers who've never shot drugs before. And everyone else is like, it's the thing you do, at best. Number 2, your natural production plummets to 0 after several weeks at most of exposure to TRT. And unless you take HCG and maybe a few other drugs along with that, your natural production will completely deteriorate to nothing. Oftentimes your testicles shrink to very close to nothing. And that's not itself, I suppose, a big problem. But if you ever want to come off of TRT, then your rebound is going to be at least a little bit fun in the not fun way. You could be low in testosterone for months and months and months until you come back out. And some people actually never get their natural production back. It's a very small number of people, but it does exist. So it's just a whole lot of risk and pain in the ass that you better know what you're signing up for before you sign up for that shit. That's what I'm trying to say. Number 3 downside is your mood can swing up and down with injections. So injections have a small amount or a moderate amount of the drug just circulates to the bloodstream within the next several hours. And a larger amount of the drug stays within the depot, the bolus itself, and leaches out slower if you inject intramuscularly, for example. So after every exposure, you do get a higher underlying slow, long concentration of drug, but you also get a bump. And after the injection, unless you inject once a day and then you still have a tiny effect, but if you inject twice a week or oftentimes TRT is done once a week, right after that injection, you're going to be more anger prone, more irritable, more frustrated, more sexual, more just more man in every way, good and bad. And then midway through the week, you'll feel amazing and always. And then towards the end of the week, you'll be like, not so much the ultimate mensch anymore, but kind of like wilted and maybe a little depressed, and Mr. Winky's not working as well. That fucking sucks. Like, your nuts kind of produce the same amount of tests every hour of the day, more or less. So you're kind of good to go. Certainly through a 24-hour cycle, it's relatively normal. This is no longer the case. You can arrange for it to be the case by using insulin needles and injecting yourself daily, which fucking blows because you're injecting yourself daily. So there's, it's not quite the Jeff Foxworthy joke where he says getting married for the sex is like buying a 747 for the peanuts. But gee whiz, there's more. You're getting more than just the effect. You're getting some other bullshit there. And if you are a person who technically is hypogonadal, but is very high androgen sensitive, especially in some tissues, and you start TRT, you were making, let's say, 150 nanograms per deciliter by yourself. Now you're exposed to 900. You will get all of the steroid side effects that you got coming to you, including giant purple pimples, hair growth on every part of your body that's not the top of your head. Wouldn't know anything about that. Aggression, all this other shit you don't want, because testosterone is a steroid. It's the original steroid. And now you're taking 4 times more of it than your body used to produce. And your body could be quite sensitive, especially in some tissues. So your muscles could be normal sensitive, so you get a little bit more jacked, but the top of your head could be very sensitive and you lose a bunch of hair, or your skin could be sensitive and you get a shitload of pimples, which you say, oh, it's okay, Dr. Mike, I'll use all these other drugs and all these other medications and cleanse my skin with the Charlie Jung cleansing routine and I'll look like a Korean boy, age 7 all times. Yes, you can do that and some of it will work pretty well, but it just takes a lot, right? So it's not like, oh, I'm going to just get TRT and it's going to fix everything in my life. Not even fucking close. There has to be a lot wrong for it to work that way because it's designed to give you enough more testosterone than you normally producing when not enough is being produced. Even if you're in that group, it could affect some of the target tissues differently, and your rosy expectation for how it goes could be a little darker in reality. Some things could be great, some things could be not so great. That's how the shit really works. So how do you make your choice based on your condition? TRT administration is really annoying. It has a ton of downsides. You probably have to have a reason for wanting it. That's probably one of the biggest things I want to convey to you guys with this video, is you have to have a compelling reason to need TRT, which means the Instagram comment of, should I be on TRT, is not a question anyone can answer except for yourself. And that answer has to have a compelling reason. Like if you're sitting at home, Saturday night, you're with your girl, Netflix and chill. You don't particularly want Chinese food. It's snowing outside. You'd have to drive to get it. You have plenty of junk at the house. You turn to her and you're like, do you think we should get Chinese food? If she was smart, she would ask you, do you want it? What is a compelling reason that we're getting it? Because we're going to have to get through the snow and we have food here. Look, if you really want Chinese food, hell yeah, let's go. But you got to have a compelling reason somewhere, and TRT's compelling reason is more than just wanting it. You have to understand what effects you're going to get, likely, possibly, and go from there. Here's the thing. Number one scenario here, just a couple sample scenarios you could find yourself in. If you are hypogonadal on paper, that means you test below 300 nanograms per deciliter, but you don't really have any problems with sex drive, performance, et cetera. Like some people get their blood work and they're like, oh, my test is low. And someone's like, oh man, you got low sex drive? They're like, well, my girlfriend says, she says that human tissues only recover so often, and that's why we can't have sex 5 times a day. Like if that's you, you can try TRT to get you up to normal, but if everything is good, probably don't fuck that up. Then you'll just have the effect that most people get from steroids, which is a lot of cool stuff and a lot of really shitty stuff. And it'll call me crazy, but maybe less of both is better for most people. That is what it is. If you are hypogonadal on paper and you have symptoms of being hypogonadal, then you want to give TRT a little bit more thought and talk to your doctor about it. Some signs Don't just pick one of these, goddammit, because if it's just one, it's probably not the low testosterone. But if you've tested and you do have low testosterone, and you also have usually a few of these, then yeah, TRT is something to consider. And the more of these you have, the more TRT is something to consider. Depressed mood, and more just like a lack of impetus and drive. You know, wake up in the morning, you're like, I'm going to breathe fire on every fucking goddamn problem I see in my life. If you're on the opposite, where you're like, I'm going to breathe fire, and you're like, huh, like that's how you feel inside. Okay, there's something. You can actually have depression or subclinical depression where you're just not so happy about things. You could have a very low sex drive, potentially impotence, a very low degree of muscle mass, higher degree of relative fat mass. You're like, small and kind of soft. Poor sleep, bad blood work, low bone density. If you've got that stuff, then yeah, TRT is something to talk to your doctor about. But remember that TRT is a big commitment. It can change a lot, not always for the better. So make sure you're ready for that change up. It will be a different thing in your life. It'll make your life very different. Hopefully for the net positive. Almost certainly not for the total positive, and sometimes for the net negative. And then you just have to have another option after that. It's a big thing. It's not something you just do. Number 3, if you are eugonadal on paper, but you have a lot of symptoms of low test, you could talk to your doctor about potentially you have low androgen sensitivity. Maybe there's another drug they can give you for that. TRT is still an option here at higher doses, but that's definitely in the weeds for you and your doctor to discuss. It's a tough problem because if you have to introduce higher doses, you get more health risks, you get more side effects, and it's a mixed bag. For some people, it works out well. For many, it does not. Just saying that. Lastly, if you are eugonadal on paper, you produce above 300 nanograms per deciliter and below 1,000 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone. By the way, lots of really good research says that your androgen sensitivity matters way more than if you're producing just above 300 or just under 1,000 nanograms of test per day. In the blood. And if you think that there's going to be a life-changing thing going from 300 to 600 to 900, you may be wrong. You may feel nothing different. You just don't use your own nuts to make tests anymore. And you're on that needle, as one of my friends says, stuck on the needle for the rest of your life, which is actually true unless you want to pull out and see if your nuts still work, which could be an arduous, shitty process of essentially having hypogonadism for like 6 months until your shit kicks back in, or it never kicks back in. So again, this is a big fucking deal. It's not something you just do. It's like if you have a net worth of $10,000 and you decide to buy a used car that costs $8,000, that motherfucker better work out for you. Because if it doesn't, you are short a shitload of money and you got a car that doesn't work. So it had better work. It's a big deal is what I'm trying to say. Now, here's the thing. If you're a eugonadal on paper, you're somewhere in that normal range. And more specifically, you just don't have any symptoms of low T, because sometimes this is the big problem. I'll just kibosh this one right now. Permanent answer. If someone says, you'll see all the time on the internet, tons of questions like this. I got my test done and it says I'm just above the cutoff for the low range. What should I do? Should I take TRT? The only question to ask is after, how do you feel? Because low T is something that if you read about it, you're going to be like, oh my fucking God, I have that. But if you read the symptoms list, which I just gave you on the last slide, you're going to be like, I don't really have most of that. Then you're fucking golden. That means you are not actually hypogonadal. You're above the cutoff and you don't have any of the symptoms. And TBH, if you're below the cutoff and you still don't have any of the symptoms, like compared to your average guy friends, your normal sex drive, normal muscle mass, normal motivation, everything, you're fucking good. You just have really high androgen sensitivity. Good. God bless your soul. Amazing. If you don't have any symptoms of low T, just stay fucking natty. Do not start TRT. It's way better. Why are you bringing sand to the beach? If I ever see you in real life and you tell me a story about how you were perfectly fine natty and you started TRT, I'm going to clown you in front of everyone. I'll be like, yo, my man, why get the shit for free from your nuts when you can pay a doctor to inject it for you and cost you money and swollen infection-ridden fucking injection sites and all this other shit? What the fuck? Why? Don't do it. If you want to push ahead and become an ascended Saiyan with a 5 to 10 year shorter lifespan, just take real gear, jump to the dark side for the love of fucking God. If you're wondering about that, I have like 5 other videos about why not to do that either. that if you chose to do it, and if you're older and you're intelligent, you have a medical supervisor and all this other stuff, TRT, this is the end of my spiel, is testosterone replacement therapy. It is designed to get you from a hypogonadal state where you're experiencing a lot of really unfortunate symptoms of low testosterone into a eugonadal state in the normal range where you no longer experience most of those symptoms. If you are not that person down here with low T and experiencing the symptoms, the probability that you should be doing TRT is fucking low. The costs are really high, and the benefits are like, on average, you're just the same, but now you need the needle to keep you the same. It's like if you ever meet like a heroin addict that's been addicted for years, like you don't look like you're on heroin. You're talking to me, you're standing upright. They're like, yeah, I am. It's just heroin just makes me normal now. You're like, oh my fucking God. That's why heroin's a bad idea. You don't want to get any more shit in your life where you have to take pills or injections to stay normal. Fuck that. If I'm injecting, your boy's going to Mars. You feel me? Fuck the moon. I ain't even interested. That's just too close. Be smart. Think. Talk to your doctor. Get your blood work. Do not rush into TRT because TRT is for the vast minority of folks that need it and can benefit from it. And I'm not trying to be like your 8th grade anti-drug counselor. Drugs are fucking sweet. I use them all the fucking time, intelligently in a measured adult approach. But if you don't need the shit, don't use the shit. That's my spiel on TRT. Folks, like, comment, subscribe, tag your favorite influencers, send other people this video with an unkind message to start a fight on the internet. I'll see you next time.